Well, greetings, Drum Corps fans. How's it going? Okay, it is actually Tuesday night, July 5th, 2022, and we're going to do a kind of a quick recap of some shows that we saw on the Flow Marching streams over the 4th of July weekend. And while we're on that, let me just say I hope you all had a great, fun, safe, enjoyable 4th of July weekend. I myself here in the Northeast had an incredible weekend, did some real fun stuff, and we had an unbelievable summer weather days. It was just sunny, dry, and wonderful. So we couldn't have ordered better weather. So anyway, we kind of had an optimistic plan, as you're going to see here in a second. I had this sheet I put together with highlights and arrows and all kinds of things to follow 3 shows on July 2nd. They were the Drums Across the Desert, Drums on Parade, and the East Coast Classic show. Now, what made things a little more complicated was that the East Coast Classic show actually had a 2-hour rain delay, which was kind of cool. They went on with the show, but because you had an original start time of 7 p.m., pretty early, they were able to start up at 9 p.m. And it was a smaller show. I mean, it was only 6 corps or so, or thereabouts. But they also had an intermission, and they had some exhibition too. But anyway, so we're going to just kind of do, I didn't get to do all of, obviously didn't get to watch all those corps. I was mainly trying to focus on corps that I did not see yet at all, or hear anything from at all. So we're going to start with one of the corps, or the section of corps that were in the East Coast Classic show. So anyway, so the first corps I made some notes about with the Spartans. Their show was called On the Edge. They really have a nice big, it's a brief intro, but then they get a nice big impact from the brass and an all-flag color guard to start things off. There was quite a bit of purple in the guard, and the corps proper is also in purple, which a lot of times, if you notice, purple gets lost on the field, but they had different shades of it, and also they had some nice sequins and sparkles and stuff in the uniforms. So it does show up pretty well, actually, and the lighting there wasn't all that great. So I imagine in Lucas Oil and other big stadiums with better lighting, it will actually look very, very nice, again, for purple. It's quite nice to see it show up as well as it did. So also we had some nice solos from the brass line, did very well. Also the horn line had some great high note work, which was interesting, in the high brass, and that's a little bit unusual for them. And they also are, basically covered the field pretty well too, and they went past the metal hash at certain points, so they really did spread out in the back. They don't have 165 full, but they have a decent number of people. Not a complete show yet. They're kind of still, I guess, working on the very end of it, so it was held up a little short of the full show length. And it was kind of it kind of had a jazzy feel to it. And you know what? Actually, I'm going to be really interested to see this whole show in maybe another week or two when it's all finished and they get a little more confident and comfortable with it. I believe this was their first show of the season, so again, some little jitters here and there, definitely. Next corps I took a look at is my very interesting corps through the years is the Jersey Surf. They had a show called Meet Me in Atlantic City. Quite fitting for a corps from New Jersey, which is Atlantic City. Along the shore there is all these casinos and such like that. So they definitely a smaller horn line. So a little unfortunate to see that. And the guard was like maybe, I think I wrote number 17 here, that they had about 17 in the guard. And then, interestingly, but not maybe surprisingly, a theme we seem to have here with these corps is a huge pit and a good-sized drum line, field drum line. So everybody wants to be a drummer, right? So, so it was a little disappointing to see the horn line a bit smaller, because where they left off in 2019, they had a full corps. So anyway, Can't Take My Eyes Off You is a real hit. There's some great solo work in that, and even ensemble work. Very catchy vibe and tunes throughout the show. Kind of bring us back to a different version of the Jersey Surf, back to earlier days surf, where they kind of always had a crowd appeal to them, lighter kind of show subjects, right, and themes. So they got a good crowd reaction throughout the show, so I imagine they're doing pretty well. Living on a Prayer was one of the songs. I mean, being from New Jersey, you got Bon Jovi, that's a big one. So they had some timing issues with that one. It's a little more technical, so I'm sure time, worked on that. We'll just work those kinks out and they'll probably be just fine. And really, it's, it may actually be to their benefit, because I believe the Jersey Surf still do like a weekend only type thing until they go on like a mini tour and all that kind of stuff. So a smaller core, tighten it up. It might be better for them for that kind of a rehearsal schedule, right? That, they might be able to get things really in good shape. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. And I believe this was also their first show of the year, at least in the contest format. So pretty good for that, for the first show. They held it together pretty good. Now, here's a show, didn't see or hear anything about it. I was very curious to see what they were going to do, which is the Cadets. Their show is called Rear View Mirror. What's interesting, at least at this point, you never know with Cadets, but they did not have a crazy amount of props on the field, which was definitely cool. It starts with narration. They have a really nice bass drum line feature right near the opening of the show. Also, the opener, let's see here, quick moving, I wrote down at the end of the opener. Very, very Cadet-like. And the overall show was just a very vintage sort of, run and gun kind of Cadet style. They're going to need some more practice on some of the fast brass parts and quick drill. Obviously, they're, still getting their feet under them, I imagine, and all that. So, so once time moves along a little bit, they'll get that cleaned up. The second tune, another great bass drum feature, so they got a heck of a bass drum line. Be interesting to see how they compare to others and other people's opinion. Great energy. They had kind of a jazz jam session going on. The white cream sort of uniform tops that they have that has sort of a logo with the lines. I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know what they're called. That came off during that number, and had a maroon shirt underneath, which didn't look all that impressive, at least on the video. So I'm not sure what they look like in person. It looked like almost like an Under Armour kind of shirt thing. So again, it was not all that thrilling looking, but still looked nice. New uniform change added effect to it. Also, there was quite a bit of narration in this show. And being rear view mirror, it was about New York and getting around and all that. So I hate to say it kind of reminds you of the Blue Coats, and the Blue Coats remind you of them. Either way, you want to look at it, similar kind of thing with lots of narration and things about being in vehicles and running around and all that kind of stuff. So, basically it's interesting because the ballad was very nice. Again, lots of narration through it. And the core actually finishes drill-wise up in the top side one corner of the field, which is a little bit unique. Sometimes cores start up in the top corner, but this time in the ballad they ended up in the top corner, and then the next tune they kind of break out of there and spread out all over the field. They had a great brass feature after that, very effective with the flags. All the color guard were on flags, and there was a nice unwinding of the drill form circle that was pulled out to an accompany front, and they got a huge sound and a nice ovation to finish out their show. So again, I think that was their first contest as well, so not bad at all for them. So it'll be interesting to see where they fall. There's an interesting grouping of cores there. So now we're going to skip over to a first read on the Madison Scouts. They were in the Drums on Parade show. I'm going to have to speed up here, guys. Almost coming up to 9 minutes already. Sorry about that. So their show title is called Installation 85. Lots of backfield playing by the horn line, effective as always. And then, they turn around and they smack us with a good sound. Again, did a pretty good job with that. And when that's done effectively, that's never a bad thing, right? It's always a good effect. So definitely cool. Second tune seemed to be a bit tough for them. They had some brass section features going on, and they finished it pretty nicely, but the more technical passages were definitely dirty at this point. But again, that's not something that they can't fix with a little bit of time, a little bit of work, more practice, all that good stuff. The ballad was really nice. They had a mellow flugel and Barry solo. Timing in the brass was a bit off again. But again, that's something they can clean up, no doubt about it. They had a really interesting crunchy chord in the beginning of the third tune that led into a nice big major chord, really nice effect. And again, keeping the horn line together and not phasing with timing was a bit of a challenge. But again, it's early season. I think that was their first contest as well. So, yep, I'm sure they can get that cleaned up. All right, guys, let's get going here. We're really falling behind. So, Pacific Crest show is called Welcome to the Void. This was like a few shows into it now, and you can tell the Pacific Crest members are getting a little more comfortable being out there, moving through the show and all that. They're definitely getting a little bit more of a stride to them versus the first night, first couple of nights. So, overall, it's just so cool. I wrote a note about the props again to see all these, previous core shows props on display in their show. Very, very neat. So, very cool. Then we have Blue Knights. First read for them. Love that they have a full uniform. I think I'm a little surprised. Shakos and everything. So no costume forms or whatever you want to call them. A full uniform, no nonsense look to them. And what's interesting too is the show musically is a bit more, I guess you could say, bright, a little more major chord-like, and not so dark or mysterious or unusual. Right? Very, very bright sounding show. What's neat is they start, I think, with props. These round circles, discs that you can stand on as platforms, and the top corner of the field in the shape of the famous Blue Knight logo. So it was very cool to see. And the drum line, does a nice job throughout, as they always had a pretty good drum line. And there's a point in the ballad where the horn line and drum line are playing together, and then the drum line falls off, and then we hear a big, luscious chord from the horn line continue. And that really was a very effective moment. So basically, that's all I'm going to cover for now. Anybody else I kind of seen already or didn't get a chance to see the other night very much of. So that's it, folks. Thank you very much for listening. And hopefully you're enjoying some of these recaps. Again, we're going to get into trenches here at some shows in mid-July. So we'll have far more interesting things to pass along. So talk to you in a bit. Stay well. Cheers.